All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Alsup. So we just had a discussion regarding fibrous joints. So let's follow up with a discussion of the different types of cartilaginous joints. So same types of learning objectives. So how do we characterize them? What are the types? There's only two rather than three, like we had with the fibrous joints. And we're going to give a few examples of each. So similar to the fibrous joints, the bones in a cartilaginous joint are being joined by a solid sheet of connective tissue. The specific type of connective tissue that's going to be forming these cartilaginous joints are, as you might imagine, cartilage, okay? It could be differing types of cartilage, but it is always going to be cartilage. There will be two main types. There'll be the synchondrosis, not a syndesmosis, which sounds pretty similar. Syndesmosis is fibrous. Synchondrosis, you have this cond in here, so you know you need to be thinking about cartilage. And then the other type is going to be the symphysis. So we'll start with synchondrosis or synchondroses, if we're talking in plural. And the connecting tissue, or the tissue that's connecting the bone, is going to be composed of hyaline cartilage. So here we've seen this image before, bone, bone, and then you're going to have hyaline cartilage in between. That's what this blue is here. Now, the majority of synchondroses in the body are going to be associated with epiphyseal growth plates. So recall, epiphyseal growth plates are hugely important in terms of growth of bone length. So this is an immovable joint. There shouldn't be any movement here, and eventually that hyaline cartilage will completely be replaced by bone. And at that point, then you have a synostosis or a synostoses, if we're talking about more than one, which are those bony joints. So you have the epiphyseal line left. And so these specific types of synchondroses are going to be temporary, but not all synchondroses are temporary. The joint between the manubrium, or the top portion of the sternum, and the first rib is actually an example of a permanent synchondrosis, but still going to have that hyaline cartilage between those two bones. The second type of cartilaginous joint is referred to as a symphysis. And so with a symphysis, it's a little bit more complex. The ends of the bone are going to be covered with hyaline cartilage. This is actually going to be pretty similar to what you have with a synovial joint, except there'll be a space in between the two. So the ends are going to be covered with hyaline cartilage, but the bones, there's usually going to be what's referred to as like a disc of fibrocartilage between the layers of hyaline cartilage, okay? There are some exceptions to this rule. Sometimes there's only fibrocartilage, but we're going to kind of make sure that you understand that hyaline cartilage does play a role in many of these symphyses. Now, what's unique and cool about a symphysis is that all of these joints are going to be found in the midline. So not every single joint in the midline is a symphysis, but a symphysis, if there is one that exists, is going to be in the midline. So kind of the two major examples of a symphysis are the pubic symphysis, has it right there in its name. So this is where the two anterior portions of the hip bone, the pubic bones, they're going to join. So that's going to be located right here in this region, right in the midline. As well as intervertebral discs are examples of symphyses. So these are between the bodies of those movable vertebrae. So right in here, this is going to be the body of one vertebrae, the body of another. And so this is going to form a symphysis. And of course, we know that vertebral column is right there in the midline. All right, excellent. So that's all you really need to know about those basics of the cartilaginous joints. We'll get into some of those specific ones in a bit more detail in upcoming sessions. So real quick, let's go over a question together, or real slow if you need to. You can take your time and pause as you need. But my question for you is, and I have questions, it's really just one. That epiphyseal plate is an example of which type of cartilaginous joint? Is it a symphysis? Is it a synchondrosis? Or is it a synostosis? So try to answer this on your own. And when you're ready, let's talk about how B is the correct answer. Now, is it true that that epiphyseal plate will be eventually replaced by bone and become a synostosis? Yes, but at the time that it is an epiphyseal plate that's composed of hyaline cartilage that's growing, it is not going to be a fully bony joint, which is a synostosis. So C is not correct. These will become eventually a synostosis. But when there's a true epiphyseal plate, that's going to be a synchondrosis. A symphysis, that's not the epiphyseal plate. You'll find these located more in the midline. And the major examples of those are the intervertebral discs between the bodies of the vertebrae and the pubic symphysis. All right, excellent. So we've discussed fibrous joints, we've discussed cartilaginous joints. Now pretty much the rest of the time in our discussion of joint basics, we're going to focus in on the big one, the synovial joints. So that's where we're going to spend the majority of our time in these upcoming lectures. All right, excellent. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and please reach out if you have any questions.